Hey there berries, welcome to my 10.16 tier list. This is what Riot dubs as the Worlds patch. So if you are uninformed, this is a big patch catered towards pro play. This is the patch that pro players will be using when they play competitively in a few weeks time for the end of season championship trophy thing. Yay. This is a tier list still though catered towards solo queue, not professional play. So bear that in mind. This is still solo queue based, but the changes in the patch has been largely catered, to pro play. This patch compared to 10.15, there are a lot of different champion changes like across the board for every single lane, more so than any other patch because it's a worlds patch. What I'll say though, for the support role, there aren't too many dramatic changes though. One or two supporters are getting hit quite hard. There's a couple of minor buffs, but generally there isn't too much going on. There's a couple of AD carry changes that we'll mention briefly when we get there. But on the whole, what you've been playing recently should be doing okay anyway if you were concerned. But hey, let's just hit the tier list up straight away. I am streaming on Twitch, as you can probably tell. Those berries chatting over there are gonna ask me some questions as we get through the tier list once we hit tier 3+. I'm aware, by the way, that I haven't got Pantheon or Set on this tier list. I'll just say it right now. I don't feel like I'm comfortable advertising those champions as support. I know I've got some wacky ones here anyway, because like when I made like the base of this tier list, like stuff like Fiddlesticks was played more often than even the current Pantheon and Set right now. So some of those are kind of just there just because they used to get played, but the play rate of Pantheon and Set, at least from my perspective when solo queue, is virtually like 0. I think I've seen 2 Pantheon supports and 2 Set supports in the whole of season 10. So I'm not too sure why there's been so much advocation from a small number of people out there for it, but I could have put them in tier 5, but I honestly I forget because I don't regard them as a support still. So yeah, you can see it in the tier 5. I'm sure you've been looking at that the entire time. There's nothing really too special. Nothing's been moved in tier 5 or tier 4 for these tier lists recently. We'll move up to tier 4. You got your usual suspects there as well. I did take out Brom, used to be in tier 4, that's been pushed up to tier 3. We'll talk about that a little bit in a second. Other than that, I mean, apart from the fact if you're wanting to learn solo queue and you've been playing some of these champions in like top lane in particular, or maybe mid, like the Xerath or the Maokai, or the Gragas kind of jungle, Shen top, you can bring those into the support role if you're wanting to learn the role, but they're not really a champion that you're going to be sticking with a long time. Is Taric bad at the moment? Taric is okay into hard engage, but if you look at any statistical website, Taric is generally quite high, but that's purely because of Taric plus Yi funnel that goes on terms of ELO boosting. So a lot of people buy accounts, unfortunately, and the way that those accounts get boosted up to Diamond Plus is basically through Taric Yi a lot of the time. So that's why Taric is sometimes extremely high, like absurdly high on the stat lists. But that's only because of the majority of players that are playing Taric are those kind of people. So yeah, just one thing to take away there if you're looking at stat lists, that sometimes a couple of champions are basically being like exploited their way. It's the same with like Twitch as well. You'll probably see higher win rates if you're looking at other tier lists for Yi and Twitch. Those are the big ones. Sometimes there's like an Ivan, Rengar as well, but we're probably veering too much off the support here. Moving up to tier 3. Alright, now we're getting to the juice of the tier list. There's a few champions here that are getting changed or are indirectly getting changed. There's a big change to Karma, which we'll talk about. Let's go from left to right. So Rakan's getting a buff this patch. His ult movement speed's going from 50% to 75%. I don't think that's going to be enough to make him a true solo queue champion. I think that's going to help him in pro play, hence the pro play patch, because they can organize the Rakan in an AoE composition much better. The problem is in solo queue, having an AoE team is quite rare these days because of the amount of single target assassins there are. Secondly, even if you have AoE like an Orianna mid and maybe something else, getting coordinated to round up like that for AoE is kind of meh. Also, Xayah received no buffs this patch. So Rakan was tier 3, still tier 3. I don't think it's going to be that major. I only expect him to go up at 0.5% maybe in solo queue at most. Karma got moved down from tier 2 to tier 3. There's even a chance she could teeter into tier 4, but I don't want to be that harsh. It's quite a big nerf coming to her. Basically her Q's been hit a lot, which is the main harassing tool in lane for you. The mana cost has been increased by 15 on base, and the cooldown has gone up from 2 seconds across the board on all the ranks. So very big nerf to Karma. That nerf also, if you don't know Karma's passive, when you use your mantra and the mantra's on cooldown, whenever you do damage with one of your other abilities, your Q or your W, you're going to be reducing the cooldown of your mantra. So with the longer cooldown on a Q, your mantra is going to be taking an extra second or two as well to come off. So it's like a double power there really for her. Braum, as I mentioned, I've moved up from tier 4 to tier 3. Lucian's getting a buff. He had a buff recently, last patch or the patch before, where they extended his Q range. Still haven't been seeing that many Lucians being played because of Ashe meta coming through. Ashe is getting nerfed this patch. So there's a lot of changes going here. So Lucian's getting buffed. I'm expecting to see a higher player rate of Lucian. Braum Lucian is extremely strong in lane. So that's why I pushed it up slightly. Nothing directly buff-wise has happened to Braum, but if it means that more hard-engaged champions are viable, like Lucian, Draven, etc., then Braum becomes more viable. It's quite a big buff on on Lucian. Sorry, Lucian's damage on his Q has gone up by 10, and his ulti has been increased as well by 2 damage per shot, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he does like something like 20 shots or something. Yeah, about 20 shots. So it's a decent chunk, particularly in the early laning phase of base damages going up. So Braum gets to sneak into tier 3. Swain, I've played a lot of Swain. I feel like he's fine to play still. Very squishy in the laning phase. Don't play him against the hard engage, but still fine to play if you've been playing Swain a lot. I feel like the 10 movement speed does suck. I would ideally like not to play with phase rush, sorry, and play with like an electrocute. But when you pop your ulti and if you have no phase rush, Swain moves slower than when he used to have a cane. So he can make nice picks in lane, but that 10 movement speed sucks a lot. That he lost in that previous patch. So yeah, he's still tier 3. Thresh, tier 3 still, solo queue champion, very good in high ELO, not so great in lower ELO. Very individual champion base. This Thresh honestly is either tier 2 or tier 3 depending on your ELO. I generally like putting some of these champions down on their lower tier like barrier, like usually because I don't want to give people false expectations. But if you're on like Plat Plus, Thresh is better because people will click Lantern, jungle will follow up easier. Also your mechanical skill will be a bit higher as well, so you should be able to interrupt like Tristana dash. Tristana's getting a buff this match, you know, with Lucian and Tristana being buffed, the dash playing against dash AD carries might be a little bit more frequent as well. So if you're good at interrupting dashes, then Thresh could probably sneak up to being a tier 2 for you. Nautilus is getting nerfed this patch. I've kept him at tier 3. I don't feel like he's going to be like tier 4 still, but it's shield down 15, 60 to 45, which is a sizable chunk, especially early in the laning phase. A lot of these are like laning phase, like changes, buffs, and nerfs. So Nautilus is going to be a little bit squishier during that laning phase. I know he's been played a decent amount in professional play, hence the nerf. But it's obviously hit a solo queue a bit there. I'd say if I had to choose between like the Thresh and the Nautilus, I personally would pick Thresh for high elo and Nautilus for low elo still. So if you're like in silver minus, then if you want to pick a hook champion out of these two, then take the Nautilus rather than the Thresh. Zilean tier 3, once again one of those champions in tier 4 but slightly stronger. You can if you have experience playing him on the mid lane, you can bring him in. Has some good synergy with hyper carries, or like for example Jax on your team, or someone who like even assassins can work quite nicely. Someone that can zoom in, get damage. Even if they're squishy, you can pop the ulti on them at the same time, trade a kill for your ulti, and then you're looking good for the next team fight. But you are very squishy in the laning phase, so you need to make sure you're knowing how to position, but he's an okay champion. The next one is Morgana. She's getting a buff this patch, 1 second off her cooldown on her Q. Nothing crazy. I don't feel like she's a particularly strong champion anyway. It's a weird change. I guess they wanted to give her something rather than nothing, but 1 second off on her Q, her binding cooldown, will help her a little bit. Yeah, it's gone from 11 to 10. A nice rounded 10 seconds there. I think that's the same with like Swain, if I'm correct. Like I think they like rounding off around about 10. I've noticed lately. I think they've made it so Swain has a couple of 10 second cooldown recently as well. Alistair and Pyke, nothing new on those champions. Not particularly the best at the moment either. Alistair had some minor buffs recently, but nothing's really happened on him. Player rate is still fairly stale. I think if you have the ability to maybe like, if they've got a mid laner that is pretty immobile and you can go Moby Boots, I think that it gives you an opportunity. Otherwise, it's just kind of meh. You really need to roam. Both these champions, ideally, you're roaming on quite a bit. Pyke, as always, can snowball really crazily, or you could get nothing from it. So, depends. If you like gambling, Pyke, sure, go for it. But when the fun stops. Then we go to tier 2. I had a little bit of difficulty for this tier 2. So I'll just say straight off the bat, I'm not sure if I'm happy with Nami being tier 2. The only reason why she's in tier 2 still is because I looked at loads of different win stats for different champions, and her win ratio in solo queue overall is okay. At the moment, I'm personally not having much fun playing her. I think there are better enchanters than her. I think she's better than a lot of the champions in this tier 3 though. But I've compared to some of these other tier 2s, I'd say she's probably the worst in the tier 2 right now. If there was a tier 2.5, I think she would be the only one in there. I think if you like playing Nami still, I mean, if you like playing anything tier 3 plus, go for it. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something that feels off about playing Nami in lane lately. I'm not quite sure what it is. I haven't really pinpointed it. And with now I mean, you would have thought that she would have done quite nicely with the Ashe buffs coming in, and then doing well with the hard engage. AD carry is not doing too great until, well, this patch coming up. But I don't know. Something feels off about playing her right now compared to some of the stuff in tier 1, as you probably already guessed. But yeah, Nami's good. Statistically speaking wise, she's strong. But personally, I'm not. This is someone who's played a lot of Nami. Nami's probably my highest paid enchanter as well. Something feels off there, and I can't pinpoint what it is at the moment. So I apologize for that. But tier 2 right now. But I think if you want to play enchanter, there's other options here. Janna's still tier 2, decent disengaged champion. Don't be looking for plays, but if you like, countering what the enemy wants to do in a team fight, then Janna's pretty fun at doing that. I've got a couple of actual fun Janna videos on YouTube, believe it or not, recently. Blitzcrank tier 2. Everyone hates Blitzcrank. He's actually probably tier 1 in silver minus. As you get higher, people position a little bit better against Blitzcrank. But he's still a very good pick if you just get hit by one hook. against the bot lane that can't really do much about it, then you're looking for a good time anyway. Zyra tier 2, the second strongest mage still out on this tier list. Not much to add there. If Zyra is a mage that you're looking to play, then I've got a Zyra guide on YouTube, make sure you check that out. Yumi I've put down from tier 1 to tier 2. I think she's still incredibly good. Kind of like the Nami situation, but like maybe tier 1.5. She could be sitting in at 1.5. I think sometimes she feels incredibly OP to play. Other times it feels like you're not really getting much value and that you could have maybe been playing another enchanter. I think that it kind of depends on how hard it is to land passive during laning phase and get some harassment off for some extra gold and some extra passives and stuff. But you know, with the whole Yumi syndrome anyway, like if you've got one person on your team doing really well, you can just attach to them and speed them up, heal them up, you know, you help them out just for free. It's sometimes in some cases it's disgusting. but if you do get caught off, or your AD carry does get caught off, then they basically get an extra 450 gold that you die, 300 from the kill and 150 gold from the assist. So yeah, it depends on more on your AD carry more than yourself usually. Bard, he's getting nerfed. Now these changes are slightly weird. It's definitely going to have a slight hit in his win ratio. There's another laning phase. All of these are laning phase nerfs and buffs. So Bard has minus 15 base HP, 575 to 560, and minus 15 on his full power heal on his shrine. Now, from what I've heard from a couple of people, I personally don't play watch pro play. But I've heard that Bard has recently been doing in pro player putting shrines for top lane or something, like 3 shrines up top and then recalling. In solo queue, that's a terrible idea and you wouldn't be doing that anyway. But that's probably the reasoning behind that. Plus Bard has generally a high win ratio anyway in solo queue in high elo. Master Plus, I think it's something insane like 54% win rate. So he needed a nerf anyway. He's going to be slightly squishy in lane. He might not get away one or two more times out of about 100 games or something. So it will affect his win ratio slightly. But honestly, his shrines were generally pretty meh anyway. I don't really think this is going to do a huge amount. Most of his powers from his stuns and his stasis anyway, and the tunnels. Bard has never really been influenced by numbers anyway. What this kind of just makes it so that Enchanter Bard is a bit worse. I mean, whatever. No one's really playing Bard for his shrines anyway. So Bard tier 2, no matter what elo. Tier 1, it can be tier 1 if you're like very high elo, talking about Diamond 2 plus. The higher elo you go, the crazier the Bard players can get. And yeah, if you really want to one trick something, and your Plat Plus, Bard has always been someone to stick onto. Even with these nerfs, shouldn't change much about him. And then we go up to tier 1. Let's have a look here. So your usual suspects, you got Lux, Senna, Sona, Leona, Lulu, and Soraka. So Soraka is what I switched over with the Yumi, and that's the only change that made up for on the tier 1. Interestingly, I've got a video on the Lux Sona bot lane, the Druid bot lane that's been happening in pro play recently. I'm assuming Riot didn't get a patch out quick enough for that. Apparently it is a real problem in pro play at the moment, this Lux Sona, and unless they do like a hotfix, which could happen because this is meant to be for Worlds, if they deem that Lux Sona is too annoying, then one of these two or both of these champions could get changed, or both of these could get changed. I should probably throw that out there, but it's unlikely, but it could happen. So Lux, in my opinion, is the strongest AP mage you can play. Enchanter Lux I don't like, but if you want to play Enchanter Lux, it's still okay for tier 2. Sona, I think, has, apart from Taric that we mentioned earlier, has the highest win rate in solo queue. So if you're looking at a pure statistical number based, like Sona has one of the highest win rates in solo queue right now. And if you only care about that kind of stats, then Sona's the champion for you at the moment. Senna win ratios aren't like crazy high, honestly, but it's a really good pick when your team needs that additional attack damage. If you've got too much AP on your team, or if your AD carry is playing an AP carry, that's when she's tier 1. She dips down to tier 2 if those factors aren't met, and she can even dip down to tier 3 if the enemy team has lots of hard engage and you are a team full of AD. That's like literally the worst case scenario, and then in that case it would be a tier 3 Senna. So she jumps around a lot here, but if you feel confident to play Senna, you come from an AD carry background, Senna's really good. Wherever you do lethality build or you do man immune build, you can do man immune build, but you would need to be confident that you're going to be picking up the gold for that quite early on. Leona, the strongest tank here still, I think, personally, by far. With Lucian getting buffed as well, Leona's another great pick as well with a Lucian. Yeah, nothing really else to add on to that. She's just always been a really solid tank for a really long time. Lulu, if you want to play Lulu, I would advise you to use a third-party website and check if your AD carry in the champion selection mains AD or not. If your AD carry doesn't play AD carry a lot, do not play Lulu. You'll do badly, really badly in lane. But if your AD carry does play, you know, ideally the hyper carries like Vayne, etc., Twitch a lot, then Lulu will be generally a safe pick, but make sure your AD carry actually plays AD. And finally, Soraka getting moved up. Harassment in the laning phase is quite overwhelming. Very high win ratios in solo queue right now. And now with the shorter range champions like Lucian, as long as you respect, like say if you're up against a Leona or a Braum, you might have to take cleanse or barrier for yourself. But she actually does surprisingly quite well into tanks early on with barrier baits. And then if you landing your Q, and getting the rejuvenation buffs, generally pretty easy against those. So as long as you understand your damage values and your healing values quite early on in that laning phase, you can actually do a really good job at outplaying tanks in that situation. But you know, you're gonna still have to be a little bit careful. But stuff like Soraka generally suffers more against double poke. So with Karma getting nerfed, you got Ashe getting nerfed. Like those two champions are quite frequent in solo queue. Now with the poke champions are getting nerfed, Soraka is more at range to do Q poke now as well. So that's why she got moved up. So yeah, expect to see, you know, fewer Karmas, fewer Ashes, maybe a few more Lucians. You know, that in that kind of route, like Soraka is one of the ones that suffers the most from poke in the support role. So yeah, hope you guys take something from the tier list. I don't know if there's, I'll take like 2 questions from Twitch chat. While I'm waiting for a couple of questions in Twitch chat, I'll do a little shout out for myself. If you are watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. I've got some more champion guides coming out very shortly. You know, if you want any advice on any support champion, have a look at the guides that I've made. And yeah, hopefully this tier list helps you out. Alright, let's have a look at a couple of questions. Should I play Yuumi low elo or only play her high elo? Ooh, that's a good question. I think Yuumi gets more value in higher elo because you can generally put more trust in someone on your team not to misplay. Because when you're attached to someone, you are relying on them not to make misplays. Because if they get caught out, you are likely to die as well. So there's more deaths generally in the lower ELOs. So yeah, Yuumi can be more of a risky pick, but she's still a good pick though overall. So maybe if you're playing with an Ezreal, an AD carry more slippery rather than something a bit more random, then you should be having an okay time there, at least anyway. Is Lulu, Nico, Lux, Xerath, Senna a decent champion pool in silver? It's not exactly a direct question to the tier list, but you know, what you can see on this tier list here, I'd say take anything here from tier 1, tier 2. Ideally, tier 3 if you're more new to the support role, really. So if you don't see those champions in tier 1 or tier 2, then I would generally say don't play them, unless it's for solo queue climbing specifically. How do you deal with Lux when she gets ahead? You gotta kill her. You gotta hard engage her, otherwise she's just gonna poke you down and there's nothing you can do about it at that point. If she gets you down to half HP, you're never gonna be able to go in. So you need to go in as soon as you're full, reset and go straight in. And do I prefer Standard Grasp or Glacial? Glacial. Okay, chat, thank you for the questions, and you know, I'm always reading any questions that are happening in the YouTube comment section down below if you are watching from YouTube. And yeah, take care guys, stay safe, and enjoy the big Worlds patch. It's a big one.